Hey there, folks. So during this pandemic, there's just been a huge growth in the increase in the interest in kayak fishing. People had a lot of extra spare time, but now that as this pandemic is starting to pass and people are getting back to work and traveling and pursuing other hobbies or finding out that kayak fishing wasn't necessarily for them, there's a glut of kayaks on the market. So this is a great time to buy a used kayak. So today I have my Salty 120 PDL out here in the yard, and I thought I'd go over some things that you should look for when making a purchase of a used pedal driven kayak. Now, the best thing you can do is to get it out on the water and test it on the water, but a lot of times we're not able to do that when we're making these purchases. A lot of times we're making them in the driveway. So we have to assess the condition of the kayak while we're not on the water. So I thought I'd go over some of the things today that you need to look at before committing to a purchase. All right, so let's get started. I'm going to break this down to make it very simple and easy so that you don't end up investing your money in a lemon. All right, now a couple things you might need are a flashlight and a wrench, especially if you're going to be looking at a prop driven pedal kayak. Also a chicken is optional. Okay, let's get started here. I always like to make sure I'm in a well-lit area so that I can really look things over. And the first thing I recommend doing is go ahead and take the pedal drive out of whatever kayak you have if it's installed, because you really want to focus on the hull first, and then we're going to look at the pedal drive later. Okay, so let's go ahead and remove that. Now, one of the most important things we're going to be looking at is hull integrity. So you're going to inspect and look for any visual damage on the hull. And this is why I like to have a flashlight, because then I can shine it down inside these scuppers and look for cracks. Because generally, this is where you're going to get cracks or deformations, is around scuppers or where the drive actually locks into. So you want to take your time, inspect every scupper, look around those points that are likely to crack. Another common point for kayak hulls to fail is around the seating. So you definitely want to check around the seating as well. Any pressure points where the seat meets the hull, you want to check those over for cracks. And you just want to continue to do this all the way back on your kayak. Then the next thing you want to do is you want to flip the kayak over and in addition to looking at the same areas we looked at before around these scuppers, you especially want to do this back here in the rear, because people often use scupper carts. Now, Hobies have them reinforced, but a lot of manufacturers don't. So you really want to check these and see if somebody's been using a scupper cart on them when they're not designed to, because a lot of times this is where you'll get abrasions and cracking. Other common points you want to check here include the keel and the bow, where there's likely to be rubbing. Now, a little bit of boat rash like this boat has here, where it's just scrapes and stuff, that's really not that big a deal. Old Town has these skid plates, which can actually be replaced. So these are easy to fix. So even if this is damaged, it's not something I'd be all that concerned about. Now, to what degree should you be concerned about scratching? Even relatively deep scratches like this is not very much. These really won't have a severe impact on the longevity of the kayak. But you do want to look, like if there's really heavy scraping or thinning in some areas, you want to press on that hole, make sure it's still solid and hard. You don't want a part of the hole that will flex or be paper thin. If you get to a thin area, you can have the person who's selling you the kayak hold the flashlight from the inside of the kayak, and if you can see the light on the outside out here, then it's very thin and should take away from the value of the kayak. Okay, now that you've looked at the hull, the next step is we're going to look at things like gear tracks, rudders, handles, anything that's attached to the kayak to see if that's been damaged. So you might get damage on the gear track. You want to see, is there anywhere it's been torn out or overly flexed? You want to make sure that all the knobs rotate freely. You want to make sure that your seat attachment sites are firm. Like this one's a little bit loose, but looks like this needs to be tightened on that screw, but something you might want to check. And a really big one to check is the rudder. So the first thing you want to look at is just rudder functionality. So we're going to make sure that the deploy and stow system works on the rudder. So we're going to turn the handle. That looks good. While it's down, we're going to test and make sure the rudder actually turn. And that looks good as well. It should be smooth and easy to do. Some of these have rudder tension knobs, so make sure that those are loosened up, not overly tightened. And then we're going to come back here and inspect, are the cables in good condition? Is there any corrosion in here? Like there's a little bit of corrosion on that copper there that attaches it, but it's not bad. You can see that brass or copper fitting has a little bit of saltwater corrosion on it, but it looks okay. It looks like it fits on there. No obvious damage to the rudder, so everything looks good here. A lot of times you'll get a lot of wear down here on the bottom if people forget to pull their rudder up when they're coming ashore. Then we needed to check if the stow functionality of the rudder is good. So go ahead and pull that up. There we go. Yeah, that looks good. And again, check over everything. These paddle clips, these rod tubes especially, this is where it's good to have that flashlight. Look for cracking down in those rod tubes. Usually these can be replaced from the manufacturer for a small fee. And another thing you want to check is hatches. Do they seal? Now these hatches on my old Town seal up fairly simply. They just have this mechanism underneath. But the Hobie hatches, they have a rubber O-ring on them that can sometimes get gummed up and make it harder to close your hatch. So you want to make sure the hatches seal up and are tight. Okay, next we're going to do a chair inspection. Now a lot of people don't appreciate this, but you know, chairs are a very expensive component of a kayak, and a lot of these chairs are pretty fancy. They're pretty nice. Some of them even have quite a number of mechanisms on them that can fail. So be sure and look over the chair. The main things you want to look at here is stitching. So is the stitching pulling out anywhere along major points? Do you see any fraying? Is the fabric faded, like it's been stored outside? So you want to check all along the major stress points and make sure the stitching is holding up very well. And sit in it and make sure that it's comfortable for you and adjustable to your needs. Now, this one just adjusts here using a singular strap, but the Hobies use an elastic style cord that I've noticed in the past when buying used Hobies, those elastic cords do tend to go out. So make sure those are functional, and they use a BOA cable system on the back for a back tensioner. So make sure you check all of those things. You want to make sure that the seat fits in there appropriately. It hasn't been bent in any kind of way. Okay, so next we want to go ahead and take a look at the pedal drive system from whatever kayak you're buying. Now, if it's a prop driven system like this one, this is where the wrench is going to come in handy. If you're just looking at like a Hobie Mirage drive, there's really no components that you should take apart. You're just going to be visually inspecting, but this is a good opportunity to use those flashlights to look and see what's going on down in there. So find a way to lock in your drive system and deploy it. And make sure that everything fits and is functional. So if you're not on the water, get some kind of chair or something, or a box, to elevate the end of the kayak up. So I'm just going to use a chair here, and I'm going to pull this kayak up on it there. Okay, we're going to look over the pedal drive system. So just do a visual inspection. is there any obvious damage or corrosion anywhere. But you want to open it up if it has any hatches or anything, make sure everything's functional. But the main thing here, we're just looking for anything that sort of jumps out as out of place. And this looks pretty good. Now, of course, the real moment of truth is, does it lock in and perform as you expect it would? So we'll go ahead and deploy this drive. Want to make sure that it locks in and it's firm. And then we can test the prop system by turning it. If you have the Hobie, then you can just move the pedals back and forth. Does it feel smooth? Is there any kind of unusual grinding in there that you feel? And does everything look to be performing as you would expect it? And this feels pretty good. Now with these prop systems on the PDL here, everything is inside the sealed unit, so there's not a lot of inspection that can be done. On a Hobie Mirage drive, you can definitely inspect the teeth, the idler pulley, which is something that broke frequently on my Hobies, and check the spine for any cracks. But those gear teeth are definitely something you want to inspect, as well as the masts, whether or not they're bent that those fins mount on, and make sure the fins aren't peeling away in some way. I've had multiple fins peel off on my Hobies. So you want to check all of this stuff over, but there is something you can do to really check and see how well the previous owner took care of their prop drives, especially if they were around salt water, and that is to remove the prop itself and check the pin and everything that it mounts on for corrosion. So this is where having that wrench will come in handy. So I would go ahead and take off the prop. This doesn't take very long on most kayaks, depending on the model. So put your thumb over that so you don't lose any washers or anything like that. Okay, and then we're going to do a visual inspection of the shaft that mounts on, and I don't see anything here that's super troubling. There's a little bit of wear here, probably from fishing line on this metal, but I don't see any significant amounts of corrosion. There's even a little bit of grease on here, so the owner was obviously taking pretty good care of it. So it's actually really good to have some practice doing this, and having the original owner there who can show you how to change the prop, because it's probably something that you might have to do as an owner of this kayak. Now, another thing to consider is just how much customization has been done on the kayak. I tend to utilize a lot of the gear track systems and minimize the amount of drilling I'm doing in my kayaks, because when I go to resell them, if the new owner doesn't like the placement of those, then you will be stuck with having to take off whatever attachments and then somehow finding a way to patch those holes. So here I have a through hole transducer mount for my fish finder that I mount here on the gear track, but I have installed a permanent side bin and storage for pliers and scissors and things like that here. So if the new owner wanted to take this off, they'd have to patch these little holes that I put in there. So this may add value to a kayak for you as a buyer, or it may take away value if it's something that you don't see yourself using, and you need to take that into consideration. So now that you've completed your inspection and you feel like you have a better understanding of this potential buy you're going to make, there's other things that you need to consider. Namely is warranty. So how old is the kayak that you're buying, and does the warranty stay with the original owner, or is it transferable? It's variable within the kayak fishing industry depending on the manufacturer, and that is something that you will need to find out. For example, Old Town, the warranty is non-transferable, whereas with Hobie it is, but it's only a 3-year warranty. So you'll need to consider that, whether or not that's going to impact the price point you're willing to pay. Other things as well, a lot of people tend to sell, especially when they're moving out of the sport, they're going to sell fish finders with it. They're going to sell PFDs, paddles, and things of that nature. Now, fish finders, there's a lot of really cheap ones on the market. So if they just have like a 4-inch Garmin Striker on there, that's a $100 fish finder. It doesn't really add a ton of value to it. But if it's a $700, $800 side imaging, down imaging, chart plotter, from Humminbird or Garmin, like a Garmin Echo or a Humminbird Helix, then yes, that can add significant value to it. A cart can add significant value to it. Paddles, I'm going to go ahead and say, unless you plan on doing a fair amount of paddling, you almost never use your paddles except for landing and launching for a short duration of time. So do you really want to pay an extra $400 or $500 for a $600 carbon fiber paddle? Or you could save a ton of money by opting out of buying that paddle, have the seller sell the paddle separately, and you can just pick up a cheap fiberglass paddle or plastic paddle that's going to meet your needs and your budget. Okay, so next what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna take you inside and we're gonna go on the computer and I'm gonna look at some kayaks for sale online. I'm gonna go over those and say whether or not I would, based on what I'm seeing in the photos and what they're including, I'm gonna say whether or not that's a good deal or not a good deal and why, in my opinion. So I hope that this helps you make better informed purchases when you're thinking about buying a used pedal-driven fishing kayak. All right, let's go. Okay, so the first one we're gonna look at here is this Hobie Mirage Outback, listed for $24.50. Not a lot of details here. Just says great kayak, super stable, pedal drives, awesome, cash only. But we can learn a lot by looking at this kayak here. You can see it's an older Hobie because it doesn't have the Vantage seat, which is a significant upgrade. It's also, you can tell it's an older Hobie pre-2017 because it doesn't have the reverse 180 Mirage drive. So there's a lot about this kayak that shows its age. It looks like it's been relatively well taken care of, not a lot of significant wear on it. But it's missing a lot of those features. This is just the standard rudder. So there's almost no upgrades on this kayak at all. It's just basically as it came from the factory. Now, brand new, a new Outback's going to set you back about $3,500. So outwardly, you're thinking, oh, I might be saving $1,000, but you're getting a lot less because you're not getting the 180 drive, you're not getting the kick-up fins, you're not getting that Vantage seat. You have no upgrades on the fin size, you have no upgrades on the rudder. So in my opinion, this is a really overpriced kayak. There's no other accessories that come with this that really make it worth $2,500, just because the newer models, you get so much more out of them, and this is a lot less kayak. It should be depreciated a little bit more. Honestly, I wouldn't pay anything more than $1,800 or $1,900 for this. It's well beyond its warranty. I mean, one of the good things about Hobie is that its warranty is transferable, but they only had a 2-year warranty on the whole prior to 2017, I believe, and then after that it's 3. So no matter what, this kayak is outside of its warranty period. So honestly, I would not buy this kayak at this price point. Okay, so let's go on to the next kayak. This is an Old Town Big Water PDL 132 loaded. All right, so it's like new. He's only used it 5 times. He says he's firm on the price, but it comes with this bed extender. It comes with a paddle, net, PFD, which looks like it's an auto inflate from Onyx. Those are about $100 retail. Measuring board, digital scale, stakeout pole, dry bag, rod, and he said he'd throw in a rod and reel too if you need one. No rash. It's been kept in the garage. That's a good detail because when they're left out in the sun, it makes the plastic more brittle over time. So he's got this priced at $2,500. Brand new, these are $2,900. One of the things, though, it is a brand new kayak essentially, but the warranty on Old Town kayaks is one of the best in the industry. Lifetime warranty on the whole, 5-year warranty on the PDL drive, but it's not transferable. So for me, a lot of people ask me how much is that warranty worth to me, and for me, I always put that value at about $500 US. So he's right in that ballpark, plus all of the other things that he's throwing in. A lot of what he's throwing in here is not very expensive. These are cheap nets and things of that nature. But the bed extenders, you can get those from Harbor Freight for $50, $60. You know, the life jackets fairly expensive, and then everything else here is really cheap. So it's not adding a ton of value. So I would say that this is just fairly priced. It isn't a smoking deal, but if you're looking to get into a kayak right away and they're not available at your local shop and you're not as worried about the warranty issue, then this is probably worth considering. But like I said, not a smoking deal by any means. Okay, let's look at the next one. This is actually a set of 2 Hobie Revo 13s, priced at $2,500 a pop. These are 2019 Hobie Revos, so they'll be moving just out of warranty this year. They are like new condition, few cosmetic scratches. They've been used about 10 times, and they come with the Hobie scupper carts, the heavy duty scupper carts. So they do look really pristine. The bottoms of that are showing no hole rash. You can always really tell on a Hobie how much hole rash they have by looking at the skid plate for the transducer mount, because the more rash they have, the more the word Lowrance is scraped off, and this looks like it's brand new. So a brand new Hobie Revo 13 is going to set you back about $3,200. He has these priced at $2,500, so $700 off 2 years, basically used 10 times, and you get the cart, which is about $200 value. So he's basically got a $3,400 kayak priced at $2,500. That's $900 off. That's a solid deal. Doesn't have the kick-up fins because they're 2019 and that didn't come out until 2020, but you have the 180 drive fins come standard. You have the Vantage seats. They look well taken care of, and you got the cart. So you're well on the way, and you've scored basically $900 in savings. You can use that to apply your money towards fish finders and PFDs and things that you need. And the nice thing about all Hobie kayaks is they do come standard with a paddle. Hobie doesn't waste a lot of money on expensive paddle because they know that most people who have pedal kayaks don't use their paddles that much, and thus they aren't really that important in terms of price. But you do have them for those launch and landing scenarios. Okay, let's go on to the last one, which is an Old Town PDL 106 Sportsman. He has this priced at $1,500. These retail brand new for $2,000. So, like I said, Old Town's, the warranty isn't transferable. So he's right in that range already, because for me, like I said, the warranty is about, for me personally, I place it right around $500 in value. It may be more or less depending on how much risk you're willing to take. But he's got a lot of more expensive add-ons here. So he's got a kayak cart, a fishing vest, an NRS knife, bending branches paddle, so it's a quality paddle, if that's going to matter for you. And maybe when you're buying a smaller 10.5 foot kayak, you might be planning on doing more river fishing or something like that. And he also has a composite plate to put into the bottom there, so you can take the drive out and still have a dry deck and use this for paddling. So this looks like it might have been an angler that was using this more in a paddling situation than maybe some other pedal kayak anglers might be. And if that's important to you, then a $250 paddle like he's got here from Bending Branches might be more important. He's also got a few extra things in there, like a Yak Attack rod holder and such, an anchor system. But he does have a lot of valuable add-ons there. So it's a $2,000 kayak brand new, but you're not going to get the warranty, so $500 off of that. Plus he's giving you all those extras, which I think adds another $150, $200 in value. I would say that this is a fair deal for somebody looking to get into this particular brand and model of kayak. It doesn't say a lot about the conditions on it, but it doesn't look like it's been heavily used. It just doesn't have any pictures of the bottom. You'd have to go through those steps of checking out the kayak while you're there that I went through in this video prior. Okay, so that's going to do it for this video. I hope this video helped you. This is a great time to buy fishing kayaks, especially as we come into the spring. There's going to be a ton of them hitting the market over the next year or two. So if you're looking at getting into the sport or upgrading from your existing kayak, this is definitely the time to do so. And I hope this video helps you save a little money, have a little more purchasing power with the knowledge that I've imparted on you, and that you make a purchase that makes you happy and meets your needs. All right, guys, if you have any questions, let me know in the comment section below, and I'll see you next time out on the water or right here in the yard. Just remember, fish smarter, not harder.